Oh.
Today's Bible verse is short and sickening. Colossians 3:18 says, "Wives, be subordinate to your husbands, as is proper in the Lord." Well, I, for one, won't be lectured by a misogynistic imaginary sky daddy on propriety. My genitalia and chromosomes don't make me lesser than a man, and from what I have seen of men, there's no particular reason to submit to them. So, we're equal, FYI. Instead of getting stuck on invented hierarchies and dictating to each other, maybe let's work together. If I have aroused your ire and your anger and you think bigotry in the Bible is just A-okay by you, then call us because the show is starting now.
Hello. Listen to that crowd. Nice. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Talk Heathen. Today is September 24th, 2023. I am your host today, Objectively Dan, live in the studio in Austin, Texas. And joining me today is returning. It's not your debut, but it's your second time.
Is there a word for that? It's a duo-view?
A duo-view.
Yeah,
sure.
that's the thing now.
Duo-view is Sofia. Sofia, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm happy to be here.
Sofia, it's been a few months since you've been on, so maybe you could remind the audience, who are you? Where did you come from? Why are you here?
To be honest, I'm not much of anything. I'm a bit of a nothing and a nobody, but I am a formerly religious chick who started thinking a little bit more independently, started figuring out what evolution was, and it was very different from the lies that I had been told. Showed up at Atheist Community of Austin and threw my hat in the ring to start chatting with the public, talking to you people.
You guys may remember we had auditions way back in February of this year, and Sofia was there, and Sofia is coming back, and will hopefully be back on some more shows this year. Yeah. So look forward to that. So anyway, folks, this is Talk Heathen. This is a live call-in show, so we want you guys to call in right now if you can. This is a property of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheists, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And if you want to call into the show, you can do that right now. The number is 512-991-9242, or you can even call in through your computer at tiny.cc/callth, because it's 2023, baby. You can call into your computer.
What
you can
an
call
age
into
we
your
live in.
smartphone or your smart watch, I was going to say. But you probably shouldn't call in from your watch. I don't think the quality would be that great, but I could be wrong, actually. I don't know.
Some of those watches, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the feature on my watch, and I never use it. But it's like, if I was a kid, I would be disappointed in myself, because it's like, what is that not the coolest thing ever? We can talk to people through our watches now, and I don't even do it.
It does feel very Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. What's up with that? So I don't know. Anyway, every single week we are doing a segment called Talk Heathen to Me. So this is where we're reading the top 3 comments from our prompt every week. So I want to read to you guys some of the comments from last week, because last week we asked you, what is a lesser known fruit of the Spirit? Which is a great prompt. Good prompt on that one. Number 3 comes from Skepti Spike, who says, lesser known fruit of the Spirit, self-love. You can't love others without loving yourself first. That includes the supposed impure parts as well. And I like this because this is a wholesome one. Yeah. And we never get wholesome answers for anything.
That's great.
No, it's actually legit. So yeah, I'm glad it made the top 3 this week. That's a good one. But number 2 comes from X Million, who says, fruit of the Spirit, grapes of wrath, obviously. So we're going back to the jokes again.
Yes, I love that.
A very good one. Our number 1 comes from iTheist, who says, a lesser known fruit of the Spirit, cognitive dissonance.
That is definitely a virtue amongst some.
Well, it's one of those things where it's it's uncomfortable, but I think in retrospect, a lot of people are glad that they experienced that at least once or twice, maybe not everybody, but I appreciated it. I don't know about you. You used to be a Christian yourself.
I did.
Right?
Yes.
So how long ago was your sort of deconstruction experience?
So it was in about 2016, 2017 when I actually was just decided to put religion down and be I'm not going to advocate for this anymore, because I got tired of fighting to say, oh no, not all Christians are like that. Yeah. Oh no, I'm different or whatever. I just got tired and decided that I also had reached the conclusion that you can be secular and moral. So I'm like, okay, I don't need this. I'm tired. And then during that time, I started just learning more about where the Bible actually came from, the historical context of the
Yeah.
Bible, started just reasoning more on my own, and learned a lot about science.
Yeah. Yeah.
I genuinely was around a lot of 6,000-year Earth people for a while.
Oh, yeah. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to talk more about it, but I also need to give the prompt
Yes.
for this week, too. So let me do that real quick. So this week's prompt is, what is an inappropriate thing to say at a religious funeral? Now, this is a spicy one.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't even know. I don't even know if I have a good answer for this, but I think you had a really good one for this. What would you say is an inappropriate thing to say at a religious funeral?
He is risen.
Oh, that's so bad. It's so bad. I don't know. I can't be bad. I can't think of anyone for this, but we want to know what you guys think. So leave a comment below. What is an inappropriate thing to say at a religious funeral? And we will read the top 3 answers.
That's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, I want to see what people say about that. Sophia, I hope over the course of the show we can sort of introduce you more to the audience, but this is a call-in show, so I think we should talk to some folks. You want to talk to some people?
That sounds
Okay,
great.
cool. So I see we have Felix.
Yes.
Want to talk to Felix?
Yes, I love talking about sex. So this is Felix, him from Florida, who says that atheism destroys sexual purity.
Interesting. Okay, hit that talk button then. It's a satisfying feeling, isn't it, hitting that talk button? Okay,
Uh-huh.
yes, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's going on?
What's up? What's up? Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Felix. How's it going?
Good.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll make my main point, then respond. Secularism created the sexual revolution in the 40s. So it's secularist doctrine is inherently rooted in the destruction of sexual purity.
Hell yeah.
I know, I'm like, that was kind of my thought. I'm not going to take a ton of issue with you there, other than when the sexual revolution happened, it wasn't the 40s.
Yeah, it wasn't the 40s, but yeah, secularism definitely has ties in the secular revolution as well. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, sorry. I think it was, I meant the 60s.
Yeah.
But whenever it started, it just sexual impurity. My argument is that it devalues marriages and monogamy, true monogamy. Where if you wait for you only do it with one person for the rest of your life. That's kind of shattered now because of sexual impurity caused by atheism.
So can I give you some unfortunate facts, maybe, for your perspective? One is that when you waiting for marriage and only ever kissing or having sex with the person that you marry ultimately doesn't actually make your marriage last any longer. So when we look at the people who are the most committed to monogamy and what I feel like you might term as purity, it doesn't actually save a marriage. So I find it interesting that you say it destroys marriages when, in general, that doesn't seem to be backed up by evidence.
Yeah, and here's an experience I've had. I've known tons of people that got married at 18 or 19 or 20, right in the middle of Bible college, right? Because they want to be able to have sex with that person because they don't feel like they can. And those are marriages that tend to end up not lasting. Some of them do, for sure, but I don't think there's any evidence that suggests that makes it a happier, longer marriage. Here's another thing to consider too, right? I'm interested in someone who has sexual experience. I think sexual compatibility is important, at least for my relationships, the kind that I want to have with people. And that's something that, frankly, just doesn't get brought up in Christianity because it's not a value that Christianity really holds, right? We have this idea that, we want to remain, quote unquote, pure for somebody. And I guess that's because people get jealous when they think about having sex with other partners. But okay, that's just part of life, right? I don't know, you learn some things and sometimes you make mistakes, sometimes you have regrets, sure, but that's also a part of who somebody is. And if anything, I think that's a great thing. I actually don't think it's a bad thing at all that this idea of sexual purity isn't as widely held as it used to be.
I would also throw out real quick, not to pile on too much here, but when it's a pretty well-known phenomenon that when super purity-focused couples get married, a lot of the time they end up waiting a lot longer to have sex, even than, their wedding night. They don't know how to have sex. They're scared of it. They're scared it will make them impure in the eyes of God, even though they've done all the right things. And then it ends up being an anxiety-inducing experience and ends up being very painful. And the concept of sexual pleasure, this is something even Girl Defined, of all people, has talked about, is not held up as a value in a marriage, as something that you should be aiming for. And so it causes a lot of marital issues just by never having talked about sexual pleasure and not valuing it.
Yeah. So a lot of things we throw out there. Felix, what do you think?
There were some good points there. There were some good points about the experience and not really knowing how to do it. I can't disagree with that. I would just say that the more sexual partners somebody has before marriage, it destroys your ability to pair bond with that person. You've shared yourself with so many other people. When you finally get married or just live with that person, it's not really that special.
No, I mean, citation needed?
Yeah. What do you mean by pair bonding? Can you explain by that term?
Pair bonding is your ability to open up to someone emotionally and truly give yourself. The more relationships you have, the more breakups you have, and it gets messy, and that's why it hurts your relationship. Not just the sexual.
You mean all aspects of relationships? So do you think like polyamorous people, for example, are less capable of being emotionally fulfilled in their relationships than like monogamous people?
I would say so.
Why?
Okay, if you have a car and you're sharing with a bunch of people, you're putting more miles on it.
I'm not a car.
Yeah, people are cars, right?
I mean, you're right, I'm putting more miles on it, but you do know a vagina doesn't work like a car, right? Like, it doesn't get worn out. Do
you think parents have less emotional bonds with their children if they have more children?
Good question.
Like, I mean, there's lots of relationships.
Not more children, but... Oh, sorry interrupting.
Well, I'm just saying, like you can be emotionally open to more than one person. Like, I just don't think that it has to be one person. And that also implies that, like, okay, you get married once. Let's say you're a virgin and you get married, and then you divorce, and then you get married to somebody else. That somehow you're less of a person than you were before, and you're less able to like be emotionally available to people. And I just don't think that's true. I just don't see how you could demonstrate that.
And it doesn't make sense with an example even within Christianity of God's love. Like, theoretically, God would love us all the same, and it's not. Love isn't finite. It's not this really. But also, it doesn't have a lot to do with physical activity, how much you can love somebody emotionally. I hear you asserting that. I do not see any evidence that that is the case.
Yeah.
Anything there, bud?
Okay.
Yeah.
Just from personal experience,
I guess I should have had the study out. I guess I should have had the study out ready. I've seen studies quoted by the Fresh and Fit group, but...
Fresh and Fit, man?
Fresh and Fit is not a scientific body by which you should be citing sources, my friend. I'm sorry.
No. Not their study.
I know, but the fact that that's where your information is coming from makes me deeply skeptical of where the study itself came from. Also, I've listened to enough Fresh and Fit to know that they just make shit up, and then they're like, yeah, it's science, you know? Like a lot of the Andrew Tate types do. Yeah. So I would be deeply skeptical of that. They are the ones who use things like car analogies, who I would definitely be a low value woman in their estimation, which is fine. I'm not really trying to appeal to the Fresh and Fit population, but I was a bit of a hoe bag. And I have a great marriage, and it's awesome. It's so much better than what I would have had when I was still very religious. So yeah, I would say maybe not Fresh and Fit for your information. Avoid people who are widely proclaimed to be a part of the manosphere to understand sexual purity, even from a religious perspective. I would not recommend that, man.
Yeah, I have to
co-sign
on that.
In terms of religion, they are hypocrites because they say you can't sleep around with a bunch of women, but then they want a virgin. So I was just talking about a study that they quoted, not that they themselves. They're immoral.
I understand what you're saying. I just feel like maybe broadening your horizons there a little bit. I wouldn't trust much of what they say. I wouldn't fill my brain with that podcast. I'm sorry. That threw me for a loop a little bit. Fresh and Fit. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. And look, like, also, this is just anecdote, right? But, like, I know tons of people in this community who had marriages, particularly in religious communities, right? And have since gone away from those marriages and are in new relationships, and they're the most fulfilled and the most happiest that they've ever been, right? If that wasn't the case, they would go back to their religious communities and uphold those values. But quite frankly, most of the time, it's the other way around. It's you find freedom and liberation. And yeah, the sexual revolution is a part of instilling those values because it turns out it's a good thing. Turns out marriage doesn't have to be, a term sentence, right? It's not a prison sentence that you have to fulfill. It's a fulfilling relationship that you can have. For some of us, it's just a legal status because it's not built on the fact that, there's a marriage certificate between two people. It's that you love that person and, regardless of their background. And in fact, I think it's someone's sexual background and relationships with other people that help them figure out how to work with people and how to figure out what they want in a relationship. How do you know what you really want if you've only been with one person? right? It's like there could be other options out there. Not saying that people who have, married their high school sweetheart or whatever are having, unfulfilled relationships. I don't think that's true at all. It's just like this idea that somehow you're less valuable because you've had particularly sexual relationships with other people. I just don't see that. I think that's a jealousy thing.
I didn't say the person is less valuable. I didn't say the woman is not inherently valuable because of that.
Yeah, but when you make a comparison to like a car or any of that you're putting an object in the place of a person, which inherently devalues the person. So I kind of think about that.
Let's just say the fresh and fit folks, they tend to use that terminology, right? Yeah.
I feel like you're a really nice person, and I feel like you're really wondering about this. And so I think if you just even look up, feminism, I think is anathema to fresh and fit people. But if you just look up feminist stances on sexual purity, you're going to come up with a lot of interesting articles that might change your perspective. If you really value only being with one person forever, then I wouldn't say go push yourself to just like sleep with everybody. And if that's a value you have, that you want to be very limited in your number of partners, that's a value you have. Great. But I think that you having that choice is fine. Me having that choice should be fine too. And I don't think it makes me...
I don't think it makes someone less capable of pair bonding. Mm-hmm. I don't see the evidence for that, and it doesn't make sense to me why that would be the case. So, anyway, final thoughts, Felix, before we let you go?
Yeah, not that it devalues a person, but it just carries on baggage. People have a lot of trauma from past relationships, and they bring that baggage into their marriages or into their long-term relationships.
I fully agree with you there.
The more relationships you have, the more baggage you tend to bring to the relationship. That's what I meant.
So,
that's what I personally meant by the car analogy.
Yeah, I think that life gives you baggage no matter what. Whether it's a relationship you've been in, whether it's religious trauma, or the fact that, Sirius Black dies in Harry Potter 5, and I got really sad about it. That's, baggage you have carrying forward. I don't think there's anything special about sexual baggage, though. But I would love it if you went and read some of this, and I'd love to know your perspective with a little bit more research. You sound like you're really thinking about this, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would just end it, too, by saying I think you're absolutely right. Can relationships, psychologically mess you up and affect your next relationship? 100%. Absolutely. No questions there. But I think that can also be valuable. I mean, sometimes bad experiences are better for you in the long run. I had several bad experiences in relationships, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of glad I had them because I wouldn't be the person I am today without growing from that. And that's something to consider as well. Somebody who may have some bad experiences doesn't mean that there wasn't something valuable that came from it. Not saying that, they definitely should have had those experiences, but that's life, right? Stuff happens that we don't plan for. And I don't know, we just become better people. We hope to, at least. Not everybody does. Some
get worse. I don't know. We try.
Some get worse. But, at least we want to try to. But anyway, Felix, I appreciate you calling in. That's all the time that we got for this particular call. But I don't know. That was a different conversation than I expected to have.
It was. I realize I just love talking about... I don't know. I love talking about sex. It's kind of weird, maybe, to just be like, tell me all about your religious trauma and how it affects your sexual activity. But anyway, so if you want to call in about that.
Yeah, well, there you go. Strong start for Sofia here then, coming back into the host role. I hope you continue to be able to talk about sex with people, which is not a thing I say every day, but...
that is a sentence.
I genuinely do. I hope you have some fun times here with the call-in show. And with that, actually, if you like this call-in show and you want to support it, we're actually doing something special to support the ACA, which includes all of our other shows. And we're going to show you a video about that right now.
Have you ever wanted to make a permanent impact on the atheist community of Austin? Help support our space for free thought by buying a custom engraved brick to be laid on the building grounds to help raise funds for improvements. Our building has stood as a beacon for years, bringing people together. But 3 years of emptiness due to the pandemic have taken a toll, leaving it in disrepair. Help us restore this hub of connection and support by buying a brick. Moses had his stone tablets, but we're doing our own version. Join our brick fundraiser and let your engraved messages stand the test of time, minus commandments. Visit tiny.cc/ACA bricks for more information.
Yay! And speaking of other ways to support the org. If the brick's not your thing, we also have super chats, which you can donate right now. And we actually just got one as the video was playing. We got it from Richard Gilliver, who donated 10 pounds, who says, doesn't God know how to use a phone? He keeps hiding every time we are on air, which is true. October's going to be 5 years for me hosting now,
God's
which
never
is
called?
crazy. And Jesus has yet to, well, I've had people say that they've talked to Jesus, but Jesus himself hasn't called me directly. So
Interesting. He's an intermediary.
I put my number out there. You know, you think it would happen. But anyway, so yeah.
Call us daddy.
Call us daddy, call us up. You know, super chats are a great way to support the show, though. Another thing to support the show is with our merchandise. We do have a limited t-shirt coming up on the screen here in just a second. It's limited because after this month, it's going to go away. It says Jesus can't answer prayers because the Wi-Fi in heaven sucks, which is like, you know, it's a shirt. So check that out. And all the other Talk Heathen merchandise. We've got other shirts. So we've got mugs. We've got iPhone cases, and I think Android cases as well. Whatever suits your fancy, we got all that stuff. Next, I also want to mention, if you happen to be in the Austin area on October 29th. I got the screen a little bit of a distance away from me. I guess I'm getting older. 29th, we have a live show of Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience that day. Doors open at noon, just like today in the studio here. So check that out. And before we keep going, two other things here. The ACA wants to know, well, it's you to know, what's going on in the community. And for that, we do have an updated website you can go to. It's at atheist-community.org. You can learn about the organization, its staff, and its policies, and how you can get involved as a volunteer. And lastly, here's the last thing here. We do want to hear from you. We want to know what you think of the show, what you thought was effective, what needed more work, whether I sucked, whether Sofia sucked, or whether we both sucked. You know, you can let us know.
And use that wording. You suck so bad.
Yeah. Or if we're awesome. That works too. I prefer that, but, you know, it's free country. Say what you want. So it's at tv@atheist-community.org if you want to email us and let us know what you think. So we do appreciate that. Sophia, we do have another caller in the queue here. You want to intro this one too?
So this is Gary, him from New York. And Gary says, mentally ill people are taken advantage of by religious food charities. I have schizoaffective disorder.
Yeah.
So we're bringing on.
There.
Hello, Gary.
Hi. Yeah, I was just calling because I'm 57 years old and I've had schizoaffective disorder since I was about 18. And I'm doing okay now financially. But there have been times in the past where I've had to go to religious charities for food, but they always put a stipulation, or almost always, that you sit through their particular version of a religious service in order to get the food that they're giving out. The food is free, but you have to sit through some sort of service. I had to endure like 3 hours of speaking in tongues, which I certainly did believe in, even when I was a Christian. I'm an atheist now, but there seems to be a stipulation that if you're poor, homeless, and mentally ill, if you're going to get food from a religious organization, they're going to push their beliefs on you, whether you agree with them or not. And to some extent, you actually start to pretend that you believe what they believe just to get the damn food.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you're talking about this, Gary, because I've done that. I've done like homeless volunteer efforts through churches in the past, and it does seem like it's like dangling a carrot situation where it's like, oh, here, we'll give you your needs for life if you just sit here and listen to this sermon for the next, half hour or whatever, right? And it does feel, it feels gross. It does feel gross. I think if you're going to help people, why don't you just help people? Why do you have to have this extra thing here in the middle of it, especially for folks who are in vulnerable situations when they're suffering from food insecurity? Like, that's the last kind of people I want to waste people's time with, right? So,
and may I ask you, Gary, did it make you more likely to be religious?
I think overall I've become less religious and an atheist because of the way religious people take advantage of those who are homeless and mentally ill.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're I mean, I want to make it perfectly clear. I'm in treatment and I take my medication.
Yeah.
But if you're not taking your medication for whatever disorder you have, especially if it's a psychotic disorder, you're going to go along with anything just to get some food.
Yeah. 100%.
And people who are not medicated or not in treatment or don't have that available, or even if they just didn't like how they felt and so they went off of it, they deserve food and life necessities just as much as anybody else. And
Right.
yeah, really sorry that happened to you.
Yeah. I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I became an atheist more because I was listening to people like Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, certainly other atheists, Aaron Ra. I'm a big fan of Aaron Ra. He's a very intelligent. He presents his arguments very good. I didn't reach the stage of being an atheist overnight. It was like over a 10-year process. I was raised Catholic, and I gave that up a long time ago. When I was 16, I did my confirmation. My father never brought it up again, and I never went back to a Catholic mass in my life.
Yeah.
Dang,
Wow.
he was just like, all right, done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
My father didn't drive into us like this hardcore religious belief.
Yeah.
He just sort of went through the motions because he was raising 10 kids, and my mother had died, and he just wanted to do what she wanted. So
Yeah. You know, Gary,
but I never.
I sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just thinking, you know, I used to be a part of a church, or I was for a little while, that I found out that they did a service where they actually told people to get off whatever medication they were using because they thought that the Holy Spirit was going to heal whatever ailments people were suffering from. And that really ticked me off. I mean, I was not a full-fledged atheist at that point. I was still deconstructing, but I remember being virulently mad about that situation. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I got the same situation when I was in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't think I haven't drank in 10 years, but
Congratulations.
It's sort of the same thing. I mean, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm doing fine now. I just
great.
wanted to point that out.
Oh, congratulations on being sober for 10 years and on, doing so well. But I think you make such a great point that it would be really different if I were to just sort of pontificate about that. But because this is your lived experience, you can say, like, this is what I saw and this is what I experienced. And no, it didn't actually make me more Christian. It sort of is demeaning. It sort of takes this.
It is demeaning.
Yeah. It makes you a checkbook in their religious.
Why should
list.
you be treated differently from the rest of those church congregants? Right? Like if you're truly in the eyes of God, just as sinful, just as, wretched, worthless, whatever Christians use to describe normal functioning people. Like why do you get to be the exception to this? Did you do something particularly wrong? I think that's the implication here, right? That you're suffering from food insecurity, or you're suffering from this mental illness, or you're suffering from blah, 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 because either you've messed up at some point in your life, or you're being challenged by demonic forces. I mean, it is demeaning in some way. It is something that I don't think anybody should be treating anybody with, right? So I'm sorry you had to go through that. Go ahead.
I live in upstate New York, and there's an organization called Food Link. They're non-religious, and they handle a lot of donated food. But once they distribute it to the mosques or churches or the synagogues or any other religious institution, it's up to those institutions how they give out the food.
Yeah.
So it's really left up to the individual organization.
Yeah.
Something to
a lot of them.
Oh, sorry. It's something to remember if anybody's, donating to food banks or working in nonprofits, to think about the fact that you might be giving without stipulations, but it doesn't mean that everyone else is too. So if you're going to be, that's something to really remember.
Yeah, at least with nonprofits, there's usually some sort of record keeping for how some of these funds are done and stuff, right? Like that's not obviously the case with churches, right? You really don't have to report exactly what happens with any donations and things. And this is pushback I get sometimes, and I'm sure you have too, where it's like, well, aren't these people doing good work for people at the end of the day? It's like, yes and no, right? I mean, maybe. I'm not going to doubt that somebody's been helped by a church for their situation. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. But like, are there ways in which we can make this process more transparent,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't want to support a church that's going to preach to people. I'm sorry, even if they're helping people, like I just don't think that's a good thing to do. I think there's other ways we can do that, right?
I think we also see when it becomes a community effort kind of across the United States, you see that a lot of times religious organizations will opt out of actually participating in collective work with other organizations because they want to be able to preach. So they're becoming less effective, even if they're still arguably doing good things.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like it's worth asking, is this the best way to do it, though?
Right.
Like,
Right.
you might do a good thing, but if there's a way to be 10 times more effective, then why aren't we doing that?
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I agree.
I would have to say, this is a different topic. I am lucky enough to be in a treatment center that's secular. They're not pushing religion on me. That never comes up. It's a publicly funded hospital that I go to for my outpatient treatment, and I'm lucky in that regard. I've heard of I believe it's a secular therapy project.
Yes.
That's a good project, and I'm already involved in something that's secular, and that's a lot more helpful than something that's religious. But that's all I really had to say.
Great.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, Gary, thanks so much for sharing that experience, because that's super important that you share that, and I'm honestly super happy about that. I especially like I like the fact that you did tie in, like, I struggle with this mental illness and I struggle with food insecurity, and I didn't get help from either, because it's like how common is that? But like we don't say it in so plain words that Gary did, right? And I don't know. I'm like, are there secular options which we can help people with? Yes, and I hope that there's more that we can do. You don't have to, if you feel like there's a vulnerable population that you want to help, you don't have to feel like, oh, all the options are just like Christian ones. Like there's definitely places out there. So.
And that's something maybe to remember as atheists too, is that there isn't always a lot of organization, behind atheism. It's pretty independent, but there are secular organizations out there, and if we want to do good, we have to get involved and can't always just be like, well, Christians aren't doing things the right way, but it's like, I'm going to criticize them.
You know what? I hate to say it, activism doesn't end at call-in shows.
Never.
I think we had more than like this thing. You know what I mean? Like, wait, this might not be the last thing we need to do, but anyway.
Last thing I'm going to do today, though. I got it.
Maybe so. I got another show. I'm doing the next show after this, so I've at least got one more. But we'll see. But Gary, appreciate your call, and thank you so much for that. We do have some more callers in the queue, but just a reminder, we still do have open lines. So if you want to get in, it's not too late. We can definitely take some more calls. So number is on the screen if you are interested. But I'll intro this next one here. We have.
It looks like we might have an audience question.
Oh, you're right. We do have an audience question. We have this like new sign at the top here, and it's really cool. And we don't have a camera to show you, but it is at the top there, and it does say that we should do an audience question. So let's actually turn the cameras around, and there we go. Audience question. Hello, how are you doing?
Hi, my name is John. I'm from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. My first time here. Love it. My question was more for Felix and this whole concept of sexual purity. I understand Felix is using the Bible as some kind of a moral guidepost for his sexual purity, but I was just curious how he would reconcile characters like in the Old Testament, King David, who had a wife and multiple concubines.
Yeah.
So how would he wrap his mind around that?
Well, Felix isn't on the line, so I don't think he can answer that. And I want to, let's not strawman Felix's position, because I didn't hear Felix say he used the Bible for his position. So I don't know if that's true, if he uses the Bible. He very well might, but I don't want to like speak for him. I will say this, obviously people do use biblical sort of reference points for what's supposed to be spiritually or sexually pure. And as you pointed out, they're often like terrible and not great and don't lead to super awesome outcomes. So.
I feel like I think about what would I have said when I was still like a Christian and strongly believing. I probably would have made an argument about the old covenant versus the new covenant and how it was allowed at one point to have multiple wives and that, it was treated differently. Of course, that brings a bunch of different questions about did God change? That seems kind of weird. And
people are like, oh yeah, they had multiple wives, but they were sinning. But it's like, but God never rebuked anybody for having multiple wives. That is just not a thing.
He seemed pretty cool with it.
Seemed okay at the time, but I don't know.
So I know that's what I would have said, but I can't speak for Felix.
If anything, the Bible supports polygamous marriages. I mean, you could honestly make a better case for that than monogamous ones. At least if you're just doing Old Testament. New Testament gets kind of weird.
And I have heard some people argue that some women in particular argue that polygamous marriages make sense only because women do so much housework that if you split it up amongst a bunch of people, then that's great. And so it can be a...
Well, that's one perspective.
Yep. So I don't think that's what the Bible is advocating for, but, you know.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Let's go ahead.
Yeah.
Though. We do have other callers, so I want to get to that. I'm so used to not being in studio and forget. Yeah, we got audience questions here too. So audience members, just a reminder, of course, if you want to ask questions, be sure to ask the moderator, and we'll get you next as well. But I'll introduce this next one here. We have Liam, who's calling in from Louisiana, who's asking us, did we hear that the rapture should have happened yesterday? Did you hear about this?
I didn't hear about this.
Just to lighten the mood.
Yeah.
I wanted to congratulate both of you and all the listeners at home for surviving yet another rapture.
Yeah.
It happened again. And evidently, I don't have access to all the police reports, but I'm not aware of hundreds of thousands of missing persons.
Yeah.
Weren't planes falling out of the sky?
We could just be really screwed, and it did happen, and none of us are going to heaven or whatever. I don't know.
There's 15 Amish people, and they're the only ones who
and we don't know because they don't post on the internet.
I know,
so
that's true.
They don't have you know how Facebook has the I'm safe from this event thing. They don't have I'm safe from the rapture thing because they don't have Facebook.
We're gonna learn about it on NPR 10 years from now that there was some weird.
Yeah.
I know this has happened before, but real quick, this occurred to me, and I wanted to pitch this. I'm a longtime skeptic. I know my Bible. I was raised in the Deep South. And there's a very specific verse that says, "No man knoweth the day or the hour the Son of Man will return."
Yes.
You familiar with that?
Very familiar with that.
And so that's a very, very specific equation there. And even if you take it literally and just reduce it to men's, that's 4 billion men's on the planet. And so I think we could just game the system and do an online sign-up sheet to pretend you know the day and the hour, to just in your heart of hearts be firmly convinced that the Son of Man will return in the specific day and hour. You know how much time that gives us with 4 billion people?
Yeah.
It comes out to 456,000 years.
Yeah, we could delay it back a little bit. That is a good plan. I don't think they anticipated the internet when they wrote that passage, so we might have just found a loophole here.
I do love rapture predictions, though. They just make me feel a little bit more alive. I'm just maybe the world will end tomorrow. I'm just going to live it up today.
That makes you feel more alive? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's, am I the
only one? I don't know.
I don't know if I've ever heard a rapture prediction. I'm like, God, I feel more alive after knowing.
I'm living on the edge.
I guess so.
It can get tragic, though. The internet historian has that thing about, what's his name, Camping, that made all those billboards.
Right.
And he personally bankrupted himself and had people just max out their credit cards and quit their jobs, and it was a bad deal. I mean, it's really not funny, but I think it's just a skeptical outrage thing.
It isn't funny. It does it is funny, but it isn't funny, right? Because it does affect real human lives.
The fact that there's a cult leader taking advantage of people and perhaps deluded himself. Yes. That part is not funny. You're absolutely right.
The funny part is, of course, how often we have rapture predictions, right? Where it's it seems to keep coming up, but then some people are just very convinced of, this next one being the one. I have to wonder if that verse that says, we don't know the day or the hour that this is going to happen, I wonder how many more Christians would fall into that. Because I think that's a very big stopgap. I know it was for me. When I remember my pastor talking about, don't ever worry about camping and all these people because, there's we don't know the day or the hour. Or when the Mayan stuff was happening. Remember 2012? That was the whole thing. I remember having the peace of mind knowing, we don't know the day or the hour. So.
I taught 6th grade at the time, and some of the 6th graders were really, really worried about
low-key, I think I was worried too. Yeah. But I don't remember how old I was. Probably old enough to know better. But the point is... I think it takes advantage of people's fear, right? And just kind of hijacks it in a way that makes them not think clearly about it. And if you do think clearly about it, you realize, hey, John of I can't remember his name. John of Patmos, guy who wrote it. We don't even know who he is. He just literally just wrote a book. And now we just got to be afraid of this for some reason because a bunch of other people think there's something to it. That's all Revelation, the book of Revelation really is.
It makes that fear of hell very proximate. And I think a lot of folks, I know I struggled with fear of hell when I was leaving the faith, and still I think in the back of my head there's this, it's hard to shake. So if you're being told it might be this week, better get right with God, that it pushes that fear of hell right there into your face.
Because it's not just, you can't just be a good person. Christianity doesn't teach that. You have to have the specific relationship with God. You have to be saved. You have to be doing X, Y, and Z, depending on the denomination, right? But it's like, it's never just, are you generally a good guy? Yeah, you're probably fine. It's, no, you're not attending church. You're not tithing. You're not whatever.
You have 1 week to figure out which denomination and which religion got it right.
Yes.
And if it's one guy named Dave from Vancouver in 1973, then I guess you got to find him in that time.
Yeah. Go to Dave.
Yeah. I mean, to get more serious, like the evangelical branch I grew up in, believe in eternal security, to where once saved, always saved. They literally believe that you could be, redeemed by your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, confess sin in your heart. Like you could have shoplifted something or said a bad word and then been hit by a truck, and you would die and go to hell forever. And this is a ratcheting up of that psychological abuse. I mean, that's a real thing.
Definitely.
Totally right.
Definitely. And there is this theology, too, where it's like there are some Christians who think that they're saved, but they're not.
Right?
Which is, it's like, that's especially messed up because it's like, well, Jesus could do something about that, right? Like, where's the intervention happening there? But no, they're just going to live their lives thinking they're saved and they're not. That's probably the most messed up of all, if anything.
I remember knowing a Baptist who was so proud that he had converted a Nazarene to go to the Baptist church. And he brought this up a lot. This was some really big God points for him. And I remember just being like, were the Nazarenes not saved enough? They see.
Yeah. I don't know. But if Rapture happens, we're probably not making the cut, Sophia. I think.
I mean, would we want to?
Good point. Probably not.
Do you know about the pet service that's run by atheists?
Yes.
Yeah, to take in pets.
They'll watch over your pet.
Yes,
love that.
I've heard of this. Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it because, well, I mean, it is. I mean, I don't know. I guess is it a legitimate business? I mean, if you know that nothing's going to come out of it, I don't know. It's it's a little sketchy to me.
There have been instances where people who believe the rapture is coming have put their animals to sleep instead. And so I would argue that this is a harm reduction alternative.
Okay, all right. That's a point I hadn't considered before. 1 point to Sophia today. So that's good.
In favor of atheist animal rescue.
Yes.
But anyway, I don't know. I'm gonna go, but to pivot away from the dead pets type thing.
Oh, sorry.
But I definitely think that there's an outreach there thing that we could. There's a parody website opportunity for somebody more savvy on the time of sign up for your favorite Rapture date, October 30th of 2024. And I think there's enough of us out there. We could at least delay it by 100 years or so. I think we could do that right now.
Yeah, if it requires sincere belief, then I don't know, maybe not. But I mean, if it's just you just have to kind of think about this in your brain for 2 seconds, and that delays it, and you just had to put it on a sign-up sheet, then yeah, sure. I mean, be the change you want to see in the world, Liam. How come you're not?
I know, right? Let us know when you do it.
Starting this? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for calling in, Liam.
Yeah. Thank you for calling in. We do appreciate it. We'll go ahead and let you go. But that was a nice change of pace until we started talking about the pets thing. And then
I know, I'm sorry.
But,
Here I'm laughing on the one hand, being it makes me feel alive. But then also dead pets. So sorry I took you for a roller coaster there.
Yeah, but maybe we can lighten the mood with this super chat. We have one from Ben 9. You want to read this one?
Sure. Ben 9 sent us $9.99. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Money is a major factor in how some partnerships are modeled. Not the best reason for staying in a sometime failed relationship, but money is a factor.
Money is a factor.
It's very true. And I think that, thinking about what resources folks have access to is definitely a good way to have compassion for someone in a relationship that you don't understand why they're still in, that's true. You're totally right.
Yeah, it's probably better to be honest about those kinds of, arrangements too, instead of just being this is just, I don't know. I'd rather people be honest about it than pretend like it's not a factor either. So,
yeah.
But anyway, we have some more callers coming in, Sophia. I think you should also intro this next one here. So what do we got? So
this is Steve, him from Florida. Steve is saying creeping religious fascism and atheists fighting to prevent a theocracy. So I'm curious what this will be about.
Yes. All right.
What is up, Steve?
Steve, you're live on Talk Heathen. What's going on?
Well, first of all, I must tell you that your show and all of the ACA and ACA adjacent shows are among the most intelligent, well-run, interesting, sometimes comically fascinating, and helpful of any talk show content available. And I am in the media, so this is an objective evaluation, and you can be very proud for what you have achieved.
Thank you, Steve from Florida. We have an objective evaluation from Steve from Florida who works in the media. So that's I'm going to put that on my resume. That's,
Steve from Florida.
Yeah, Steve. Hey, you think I'm doing a bad job? Call up Steve from Florida, okay? he knows what I'm about, all right?
I also feel like that's such a nice compliment to like all of the different people who work on the shows and all of the different hosts. So that's really lovely. Thank you.
Yes, when we thank the crew at the end of the show, we do mean it. There's a lot of people that help put this stuff together. So thank you so much for that compliment. But tell us more about this topic that you want to talk about.
Well, one thing about how great your crew and team is that your call screener was exceptionally professional and advised me prudently not to be explicit in my concerns about religious fascism and cross the line into political partisanship, which could endanger your nonprofit
That's
status.
right.
We are a nonprofit.
Very prudent call screeners we have. Yes.
All right, Yoda.
Yes. But here, living here in Florida, you can see the collusion between, some people with political power and the religious industry. And really, that's the first foundation of it. Religion in the United States is a industry that has tax-exempt nonprofit status, but is absolutely a retail industry selling versions of salvation and personal guidance with huge profits and no oversight whatsoever. Number two, these businesses, which I remember that saying that religion is the opiate of the masses, these spiritual fentanyl dealers, not only do they not have to pay taxes or have any scrutiny on all the money they rake in from the faithful and the deluded, they also are allowed to be political from the pulpit, even though it's a violation of various laws which are never enforced, including IRS provisions.
The same laws that make us so we shouldn't be saying any of that should apply to them.
Right. You guys are cautiously worried about me saying something that could get you in trouble. But from the pulpits of mega churches with 30,000 people in attendance, people are being told things such as, women should really be property of men and the state, Handmaid's Tale, hate anyone who is not like you, especially if they don't fall in love and make love the way you do. If people are not religious, they should be shut down. They should be excised by Supreme Court rulings. And it's being installed in law, especially in so-called public education, which here in Florida, tens of millions of taxpayer dollars are being handed with no strings attached and no oversight to so-called religious private charter schools that are all about indoctrination, and that's called taxpayer-funded education. It is scary.
I feel like I would have a lot of, and I'm sensing this from you too, being here in Texas, like sometimes get very angry because it feels like this overwhelming force. You're right, religion can be this industry, and so it feels so frustrating sometimes and so overwhelming to feel like you're advocating for free thought, for independence, and then you see, like, I know PragerU is now allowed in Florida public schools as an instructional material. When you see something like that, it feels like we're going backwards as a culture. That's rough.
Texas and Florida.
I got to say to you,
go ahead, Steve.
Can I just say, as a woman in Texas, I got to say to you that Gilead from The Handmaid's Tale, I mean, what the Texas power elite have said to you as a female is that the state owns you, and also your neighbors who oppose your reproductive rights own you too, and a man owns you. Look, but that isn't, I mean, the same thing has happened here in Florida.
Yeah.
It's atrocious. Now, just the main reason I called today is I just heard we have a congressional representative named Anna Paulina Luna. Now, she is a very clever lady, and she and some of her allies are pushing this idea that the Constitution doesn't say there is freedom of religion.
Yes.
Nor does it, but it says that you don't have any freedom from religion, and that the Constitution authorizes state-enforced religion.
Yeah.
And that the First Amendment doesn't say what we atheists and other rational, even religious people think it says, which is that the government cannot give favor to religion and allow religion to be a state-sponsored institution that forces its way into people's lives. But the folks that are against, they say that they will force religion into our lives. They are going to force it into our lives, and that it'll go to the Supreme Court. And we all know who runs that organization right now. It is, look, the main thing I'll say, and then I'll get off of here. First of all, this show should have tens of thousands of live viewers right now and huge amounts of money. Number two, atheists are not just fighting against stupid ideas and delusions that come from the Bronze Age or from weird stuff like RFK Jr., et cetera. Atheists are fighting to keep America a democracy, a secular democracy, and a place where each of us gets to decide how we will conduct our lives. If we don't defeat those who seek to install religion as a theocracy, we will end up in a very bad situation, and it could happen quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I look at religion and government like cheating in relationships. If they're willing to do it for you, they'll do it to you. So I look at, if you install a theocracy, if you put religion more and more into government, I think a lot of religious folks don't realize that the more that is brought to the fore, the more that more power religion has, they will also end up getting the short end of the stick. They will also end up being told what they can and can't say, what they can and can't wear, or can and can't do. And it's interesting to me that it creeps in, this idea that, well, I kind of agree. I mean, it would be nice if more moms could be in the home to raise their kids. That's good. I agree with that. I like that. And then it becomes a loss of rights, and this materials being used in public schools that are overtly religious. It does creep up pretty hard. And so, I agree with you there.
If I could interject something you just brought up there, is that they are now the anti-abortion, anti-reproductive freedom marketers have very cleverly shifted their marketing pitch to exactly what you just said. There are now politicians and government officials pushing the subsidization of motherhood, the giving special tax benefits beyond what are already given, if not outright bonuses and payments, to encourage people to bear children, and in a way to penalize those who choose not to. Indeed, our tax code already does give advantage to those who make children. It is a very strange situation, and I urge everyone who's listening to share this show, share the entire ACA experience, because if we don't have more rational, secular, or at least rational spiritual people, some of the good religious people like the Muslim guy that's been having a conversation with Matt on his shows, not during those crazy debates where the Muslim guy basically almost threatens to kill Matt. But we need everybody to get together, because if you look at books like The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, Hitler and his boys were just a little bitty band of violent, weird bullies until they took over the country.
Well, I'm going to end by emphasizing your lovely plug for more people watching this show. I clearly agree with that and appreciate you calling in. I think, it's something I do want to put out there, though. I think it can get really overwhelming and really frustrating, like I kind of mentioned earlier, but remembering that there have always been people like us, people who think differently, people who want to agitate, who don't accept that the world needs to be theocratic, even when it was far more so. Maybe we look to the helpers of secular democracy. We look to people who are advocating for that at least a little bit, just so that we don't feel overwhelmed by,
There's a reason why in our mission statement at the beginning of the show that we read every single time, one of the things we say is we advocate for the separation of religion and state, right? This is a big deal. Now, what he's talking about here, this reinterpretation of the First Amendment, Thomas Jefferson came up with the wall of separation, right? This idea of this sort of separation. So there's been this reinterpretation, this revisionist history by Christian nationalists who are talking about this and saying, well, look, this is just coming from a letter. This isn't actually written in the Constitution. And, they add these different ideas. And it's like, there is sort of this effort to sort of retroactively change history and change its intentions, but even more so to change the liberties that we currently exist with today. And that includes this idea that, Christian nationalism, is not just this buzzword anymore. It is becoming a real thing. So that's why, that's part of the reason why I'm here. I do take this seriously. Whether you choose to donate or not, just be aware, most of us who are doing this stuff, we're volunteers. Sofia and I, we don't get paid to do this, right? We, as a nonprofit, you can see where the money is being used for. That's one of the reasons why I like volunteering. So if you support the ACA and our advocacy for separation of church and state, we do appreciate it. And we are trying to fight the good fight. On that note, actually, we have a couple supporters that we need to read right now. I'll take the first one here. It's from Kelly Laughlin, who's donating $5. Love you, Kelly, who says, great job, Sofia. So glad we got to meet, and always lots of love for you, Dan. Scott Dickey said hi, too. Thank you, Scott Dickey. Thank you, Kelly, as well.
Thank you.
Kelly is awesome. Very cool. You want to read this next one?
Yeah, it's from Miranda Rensberger. She sent us $5. Thank you very much, Miranda. It says, I'm really enjoying what Sofia has to say. Great job. Well, thank you, Miranda.
Yeah.
I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, we got Aptivist also, Apistivist, who gives $5 and no message. Thank you so much for that. And lastly, we have Roger Wenzel, who gives $9.99, who says, take this $10 and fight the Christo-fascists.
I love it.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that, but Christo-fascist is my new favorite term. That and the religious industry, I feel like I'm taking those away from today.
What did you say earlier? You said, what about people who cheat if they don't do it? I want to, snap. I want to do, a Z-snap for that. That was a good one. That
religion and government is like cheating in a relationship. If they'll do it for you, they'll do it to you.
Snaps.
So,
snaps. I like that. That was
Thank
really
you.
Good. Before we get to the next caller, actually, I think we should thank some more people who actually help out with the show. We do have our top 5 patrons. So if you do donate on the Patreon, thank you guys so much. Of course, I want to thank everybody who donates on the Talk Heathen patron in particular. But on this show, we give shout outs to the top 5 patrons every week and a special honorable mention. So, Sofia, I'm going to let you take it today and start the reading there.
We'll see if I can say all of these correctly. But I also just love them. So number 1, we have Dingleberry Jackson, which is wonderful. Number 2, Oops, all singularity.
Yes.
Amazing. Number 3, Devor Valjean. Valjean. I'm not sure how we say that, Jay. Or Devor. Do you know?
I don't think he's never contacted me and said I was saying his name wrong.
Okay.
So I'm assuming we thank Davor either way, whether we're pronouncing his name or their name wrong or not.
I hope you know that I appreciate you so much, no matter how your name is said. Number 4, Kalevi Helveti.
Yes, you got it.
Hey, I got that
right.
one.
Good
Woo!
job.
Number 5 is Left in the Leaves, and there's an honorable mention for Jose Huerica.
Yes.
I am terrible at
That's how I would say
right
that.
now.
So thank you guys so much for donating on that. We do appreciate it. And I'm going to take up the next call here. We have David, who's calling in from Indiana, and David wants to ask us info on how to raise their child and explain why you don't have relationships with other relatives with different views. David, you're live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Well.
Good. I'm going to tell you this right now. I can tell you my perspective on things until I'm blue in the face, but I don't have any kids, and so I can't give you that direct experience that you want. I have worked with kids. I've worked with all kinds of people, so I'll tell you how it is. But tell us about your situation, David. What's going on?
So my son he's 3 years old, getting ready to be 4 here soon, and I've started really thinking about, because there are some people in my life, family members, I've had to cut out for various reasons, some ranging from, extreme to, I guess you could say minor things, but enough to where it makes me feel uncomfortable about what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And, obviously I don't want to tell my son, hey, you can't talk to these people because I don't agree with them. I don't want to do that. But, I have started realizing that, there's going to come a time to where he's going to ask, why isn't this person here, or why isn't that person here? And obviously I'm going to have to explain to him the situation. So what would be the best way to explain to him about what's going on?
So I think my first thought is there might not be there's not a perfect way. The idea of best is going to depend a little bit on you and a little bit on who your child is and what their personality is like. I think a good rule of thumb is to talk to children about what your values are. So, we're a family who loves and respects people. And there are some other people we know who they have a hard time doing that. And so we don't spend much time with them because I want to make sure that we're all around people who love and respect each other. I've heard some families have success with talking about, sometimes you need to be put in timeout or sometimes you need a break so that you can think about how you want to act. Sometimes grown-ups need that too. Sometimes there are grown-ups who they're just not quite behaving in a way that we need to be around them right now. I think that at a very simple level, that usually is an okay place to start. As they get a little older, I think that you can talk a little bit more too about safety and about, it matters to be safe in our feelings, it matters to be safe in our bodies. And so there are some people that make me feel like they might not be the safest people to be around. And so we don't spend a lot of time with them. And maybe as we get older, we can think about if we want to give them a chance and see how they act. But for now, we're going to focus on staying safe and, re-emphasizing. I think with sometimes kids can look at an adult's family and see they don't talk to a family member, and it can occur to them that, well, are they going to stop talking to me too? That sort of anxiety. So re-emphasizing that, I love you so much, I will never leave you, we are our own great family. And then let's think about all the other wonderful adults we have in our lives, all the other wonderful people. Sometimes it can be helpful to list them. Oh, we have, Auntie Maria, we have, Uncle Jacob, like they're great. Or we have, your friend Ernie, his mom and dad, they're so fun, huh? Like they're great. And they make you, maybe not telling them they make you feel safe, but asking like, how do you feel when you're with them? So they can start to develop this internal sense of how they should feel around people who love and respect them. So I know that's like a lot of information and there is no perfect way. I'm raising a boy, he's now only 15 months, so I'm not quite to that point yet. But there are some people that are going to be around him that are going to be interesting, and I think we're going to have to set some boundaries and say things like, hey, that's not conversation we have right now around him, and that's a boundary of mine, so I can take myself and my child out of this situation. I know I can't tell you what to do or say, but I'm going to make sure that he's always safe. So, yeah, that's rough though. I applaud your putting your child's need first here, and trying to figure out how to navigate that.
Mm-hmm. No notes. I co-sign. David, what do you think?
And I have had to do that with some people and some family members. I am really hoping that I can improve things with them, or help them to maybe understand my point a little better. And I have had to pull myself out of it because I realize if I don't do this, it's going to make me miserable and it's going to show. So yeah. I had to step back to help myself before I could, and think about it before I could really take any action on it.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing that you're considering that, and you're considering your child's point of view as well. I don't know if parents always do that when they talk about these sensitive situations, because I personally, in my opinion, right, a kid that young, they're not going to understand the matter of facts of the situation, but they may understand feelings before they understand facts, right? They're going to see how you approach it and what your emotional response is that, and probably process that first before they even understand the literal facts of the matter. And I think being able to navigate that and be able to present that in a way that makes sense and, I don't know, is just going to help with their expectations of that relationship is probably the healthiest thing you could do, right? So
You sound like a lovely dad.
yeah, for sure. David, I think that's all the wisdom that comes from this fount, unless you have any other questions or comments for us.
No, that has actually helped me quite a bit. I appreciate that.
I'm so glad.
I definitely don't want to tell my son, like, again, you can't talk to this person because I don't agree with them, or they're doing this or they're doing that.
And someday they're going to have to make those choices for themselves too. So you can't functionally. I think about it even with I don't know that I can tell my 15-month-old what to do, to be honest. I try, but it's bad. But, it's more important for them to figure out how to make those decisions themselves, how they want to feel when they're with people, and see you making values-based decisions to protect them. That's way more important, than telling them, like, you can't do this because I decided it's bad,
Yeah, that's I don't know. Like I said, I don't think we have anything more to add, but you ended up adding more, so that was great. No, it was great. Thanks so much, David, for calling in on that, and we'll go ahead and let you go. But yeah, I honestly, the fact that you're calling in and asking us, first of all, you don't need my opinion. Sophia's was great, but it's like you're putting thought into it. I think that you should give yourself credit for that.
Seriously, I think thinking about things from a child's perspective, even sometimes the most well-meaning parent can devalue what it is to be a kid, and that their experiences are epic and huge, and the emotions matter.
Yes.
I'm not a parenting expert either. Obviously, I just alluded to the fact that my 15-month-old doesn't, there's days when I'm like, okay, well, you're going to eat goldfish crackers and a bunch of pouches of, I don't know, you're fed.
Oh, yeah, that's great. I can't wait when he grows older and sees that clip. I was wondering, so that's why I messed up, because it's the goldfish crackers and the powder. I
will say that plenty of people here at the AC make a lot of jokes about, like, eating him. Like, you brought snacks, and when I bring in this chubby baby, so.
Sophia, I know you're new here, but those aren't jokes.
At one point, I was wondering, at what point do I take them seriously?
There's going to be a barbecue next month, and we were wondering if, that was going to be an option. Of course, I'm vegan, so I'm not participating.
He is quite succulent, but also he's still pretty small.
I'm not going to ask you why you know that he's succulent, but...
have you seen his thighs? It's amazing.
All right, okay.
Anyway, my baby's very cute. Let's move on to the next caller.
Oh my God. Okay, so moving on with this show, we have another super chat. It's from Jason Friedman, who gives $9.99 and says, "Do y'all have hope for the future? Do y'all think these efforts will make lasting change? Do y'all ever feel fatalistic? And if so, how do you cope? Love you, Dan." Love you too, Jason. You're a good guy. Listen, I feel fatalistic every day. Are you kidding me? If I've given you any other pretense that I'm like not worried about the way things are going, I'm sorry. That is a complete facade, because I think about this stuff literally all the time. But I've learned to compartmentalize it on call-in shows and not, have it affect my work life. At least it's not as I try to. I don't know. Like, of course I'm worried. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't worried, right? Like I talk about these issues because I care about it, and sometimes it feels like nobody's listening to us. But the truth is there are people listening, right? And there are people that are making this change. And I know I'm trying to do my best with the skills I have in making it happen. And so I just have to leave it at that and hope that other people are going to do the same. And that's all I can do.
I immediately think of two sayings. I'm a bit of a quoter. The first one, a lot of my family is Newfoundlander, so that east coast of Canada island people. There's just it's such a simple Newfie saying, but do your best and don't worry. Like, it's a dictate. It's very blunt, but I think at some level that's a bit of all you can do. But I would also say, so you might pick up from the fact that I was just talking about parenting a lot. I really love Mr. Rogers. I think as an adult who cares about children, he's a great model. He once said that the greatest thing you can do is teach others that they are loved and capable of loving. And I feel like for me, that's sort of it. Like, not only can I care about you, it's within you, it's possible for you to care about others and make others feel valued in their lives. That gives me hope. It gives me hope that there's a person like Mr. Rogers who said such things, and really believed them and made a huge impact on the lives of a lot of people. It gives me hope that nothing stops me from doing that every day. Nothing stops me from loving people and helping them love others too. So,
I saw a movie once called Field of Dreams that said, "If you build it, they will." So that's my quote.
We should just have a quote book.
That's my quote contribution. I don't think it was as good as yours, but it works. We have another super chat. You want to get this one?
Yeah. How did you say this one?
Epistivist.
Epistivist sent us $10. It has an A. Is it 10 Australian dollars? I'm not sure. Great show. These two are so good together. Woo, high five.
Yeah, we're killing it.
Yeah, appreciation for the mods too.
Yes,
they're amazing. And definitely we appreciate them so much.
Yes, we definitely do. We have another one in the queue here. You're on a roll today. Do you want to introduce this one?
Okay.
As well. Okay.
So we've got Universal is the name.
Universal is the name?
Yeah.
From California.
So that's going to be interesting. And they say there are deeper dimensions to the Bible I want to explain.
Let's do it.
All
Universal, you are about to be, and will be.
Do it.
If you hit that talk button there. There we go. Live. You are now live on Talk Heathen. What's going on, Universal?
Yes, sir. This is such an interesting topic. And my theory is this, is that just like the human body, it has deeper dimensions from the skin level to the cellular level. See, the Bible in that same aspect has those same qualities from the surface to the deeper of the dimensions of the Bible. See? So when we talk about the surface, we're talking about the stories. And these stories are interesting because they show the animal in us. See, because we have an animal, but we also have another side. Like I say, just like the skin is the surface, we have a cellular side too.
So what's
and
the
that cellular side in the spirit? Excuse me?
Oh, it sounds like you might be getting there. What's the cellular side of the Bible in this analogy?
That would be your higher self. See, because we have an animal, so just like we have an animal, we have a conscious, and this conscious is your higher self. So when you understand your higher self now guides your animal. Because if you don't have a guide towards that animal, then he remains wild and domesticated.
Yeah. I think
so your higher self is supposed to be driving.
Universal, I think if you take this sort of Carl Jungian approach to the Bible and like to other forms of literature, I think you can maybe even get I would even posit and say great forms of spiritual development for yourself. You may learn something about yourself that you didn't realize before, or something about humanity, and maybe there's a truth there that is meaningful to you. And if that is the case, that is great. For the rest of us, it's really hard for us to look at the Bible that way for a couple of reasons. And the biggest one, at least for me, is the way that it's being interpreted by everybody else. Because just because you have this great and wonderful and fantastic and detailed theory of how the Bible just makes sense and it explains everything, the guy down the street that's advocating for Christian nationalism is well, real quick, Universal. The guy down the street doesn't have that same interpretation, right? And so the problem I have with this is, look, there's 7 billion people on Earth. There's going to be 8 billion different versions of the Bible, depending on how you look at it. I just don't think it's a reliable way to communicate human truths, right? I don't think it's a reliable way to come to spiritual development. It may work for you, and that's great. But for the rest of us, it can be a tool for oppression as much as it can be a tool for salvation. So I'd rather not use it if I can. Does that make sense?
See, when you say an interpretation is the focal point. It's about what you interpret. Now, if you relying on other people to interpret it for you, see, that's what your animal do. It says, lead me, because it needs to be led.
I mean, now, doesn't the Bible advocate for that?
There's universal truths in the Bible that if you do and follow these universal truths take you into victoriousness in your genius, because you're created to be genius.
I mean, this is kind of sounding like
genius,
mysticism. Like a lot of what you're saying, I mean, if that's what you think, cool, but there's not even evidence for it in the Bible. The Bible doesn't talk in this way about an animal self and about a sort of spiritual magic self and how your spirit is driving you, like a bit of like a car analogy, like we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
It doesn't talk about you needing to be a genius. None of this is coming from the Bible. It kind of just sounds like it's what you feel, which is fine, but I don't really understand advocating for looking at the Bible for guidance and then saying a bunch of stuff that doesn't appear anywhere in it.
Yeah, I'm going to say this, universal.
This is what I mean by this is what I mean by skin focus. The skin don't know what's going on in the outside. That's why you have to know thyself, to know you more than just your animal. Now, the animal is not aware. It's not conscious. It just reacts.
I mean, you're quoting Shakespeare to make your argument about the Bible.
And conscious responds.
I
conscious responds.
don't know if we're on the same page here. I think we need to take a step back. But listen, as far as interpretations go, right? I'm assuming you don't speak New Testament Greek coin, right? I'm assuming you don't speak ancient Hebrew, right? I don't either. I'm relying on translators who translate the Bible, who give their interpretation to the particular words that are used. I'm also relying on biblical commentaries to understand the time and place in which these books were written, and the origin points of these books, right? The truth is, at every layer when we talk about, if you let me finish, for every layer when we talk about the Bible, right? Like, I do have to rely on other people because I wasn't there when the book was written. We're so out of time and place.
So lay on that point right there. When you say that, then you're primitive in your position.
I don't think that makes me primitive. I think that makes me a responsible researcher in the text that I'm looking at. I really want to finish my point before I let you finish. So I'm going to go ahead and mute you and let me finish my point. Thank you. We have to rely on other people to make interpretations. There is no such thing as a completely independent interpretation of events when it comes to reading ancient texts. That is a fantasy. I'm sorry. You have to rely on other people's ideas when it comes to the literal words being taught, the context and understanding of the stories that are being presented, and also your own life experiences and spiritual interpretations. Like there's a combination that happens there. This idea that, oh, there's this animal side of us and there's this other side of us. I think that's too binary. I don't subscribe to this idea. I think it's a limited worldview by which to interpret ancient texts like the Bible. I am unmuting you now, so go ahead.
Okay, so now, I mean, you have a great point, but now this is what I'm saying. Anytime you depend on man to define your position, when you don't gather the information yourself, then now you're relying on man.
Universal, are you not a man?
You're relying on divine.
Are you not a man, Universal?
Yes, sir.
Why should I listen to you?
Sir.
You are but a man, right? And I should not rely on man, and now I don't have to listen to you, right? You see how we can kind of these
observation.
I know, but these principles, right? Like it sounds like these deep spiritual truths that somehow get us to this higher, interpretation and understanding. But we can just defeat them using simple reason, right? I mean, look, if the Bible gets you somewhere and lets you get something out of it, that's great. I'm not here to take that away from you. What I am here to say is, look, your interpretation is just that. It's an interpretation, just like my interpretation is interpretation. I don't see why you have, or your understanding gives you this idea that you now have this hierarchy, because you are putting other people's beliefs down, essentially. You're saying, look, other people, they don't understand the Bible right, and I do, because I have this magic truth,
I think I might throw in there, too, that anything we say, you're just saying, oh, well, that's animal, and I guess if we agree with you, then maybe that's spiritual. So it's very easy to always be right if you just say everybody else is, they're relying on the wrong things. I am relying on the right things, which functionally, when you say spiritual, it's your feelings.
Yeah.
So I don't know really where we can go with this conversation, unfortunately, because I feel like we're going around in circles, because it doesn't matter what we say, because we also believe we're animals, just without the spiritual side. So
Yeah,
I feel like we've reached a bit of an impasse there.
I think so too, and that's why I'm going to go ahead and let you go on this one, because I do want to get at least one more call here before we wrap up.
Oh my goodness, time
show.
flies.
I know we're almost getting done here, but I would hope you could sit with that for a little bit and maybe hear what we have to say. Because I know if you're talking, you're not listening to us, right? And that goes for both ways. But just saying.
And I think I would like clarification. You know, if there's, I'm genuinely a little bit confused about where we were headed. It sounded like mysticism, which
wasn't quite sure we were going there either.
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually find sometimes mysticism when it's clear you're just like, I'm making up what feels good to me. Like, that's fine, but it's a little boring to have a conversation about because there's no evidence. There's nothing there to talk about.
If there's some clarity of thought there, that is a conversation I'd be willing to continue. But regardless, let's try to get at least this last call in here. We have Otari, I believe. Please correct me if I'm wrong, calling in from Georgia, the country, not the state. Which is first time for me. Oh, and we just got dropped. Oh no. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
That's a bummer.
Just got terminated there.
They said they were going to defend misogyny in the Bible.
The prompt was defend misogyny in the Bible, and I was like, well, that's a hot take. Like, what are we going to do with this conversation? And now I'm a little bummed out.
Tell me how I'm lesser than you, Daddy. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Jesus. Oh my God. All right. Okay. Moving on. So with that done, I think we just don't have any other calls in the queue right now. So I could just talk to you about you, or we could just kind of wrap things up here. What do you think, Sophia?
I mean, I don't even know if I'm that interesting. I wonder if I scared people off with my sex talk, so sorry about that. I promise I can be better. Scout's honor.
No shame. There's no shame here. It's surprising. That's all. I just don't expect it. That's what happens.
We'll expect the unexpected.
It's hilarious. It's funny. I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to having you on more shows in the future. So we hope we get to have that happen. If people want to find you, where should they go? Do you have any?
Not at the moment. I've been thinking about doing that because people seem to like talking to me.
Yeah.
And make little comments. So maybe next time.
Okay.
Tune in.
Well, if you do have comments, again, just to reiterate, the TV at atheist-community is the best way. Atheist-community.org is the best way to email the show. And we get all of our stuff from that feed. And I guess we're going to try to wrap things up here. We got Atheist Experience later today with myself and Blind Limey. So check that out if you're watching this stream. You'll probably like that too, if you like at least one of us. Want to reiterate the prompt is what is inappropriate to say at a religious funeral. So we want your reply in the comments. At the beginning of next week, we will hear the top 3 answers. And I want to hear from the crew. Can we give a thanks to the crew here in a second? Get that crew cam on. Shout out to the crew for making this show happen.
Yeah.
We love that. And I don't think, maybe we'll do a shot of the audience. I don't think we will, though. The lights are off. The crew has not indicated that we will. But that's okay, because we want to thank the audience as well. We'll give it from here. There we go.
We can see your lovely faces. It's aiming at the middle where there's fewer people, but I promise there's more there.
There are more people. The camera is panned in on like the one empty spot in the crowd, which is like really funny. And maybe that's why I didn't get the indication to do that. But thank you to everybody who showed up live. Just a reminder, of course, if you want to see us live next time, October 28th or 9th. It's one of those two. Whichever one's a Sunday. Whichever one's a Sunday, that's going to be the next one. Ooh, we got a super chat last minute from, you want to read that one? Alan Ferguson.
Alan Ferguson sent us $20. Thank you, Alan. He said, great show, Sophia and Dan. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan Ferguson.
Yes, I had a great time today, and I really enjoyed the show. But now it is time for, the closing love rings. I think you should do the love rings today, Sophie. You know about the love rings?
Yeah.
So you gotta charge up your energy. Like this. It's like you're building static electricity, and then you go like this, you go like boop. Just there it goes. And it affects, isn't that cool? That's magic. That's actually magic. The crew doesn't even know what happens every time we do it. It just kind of happens. They've been trying to fix it because they think it's some sort of electronic interference. But nope, that is the love rings.
The interference of our love.
Yeah, the love that comes from us to the audience and to the world. So thank you to everybody. And if you don't believe, this is your community, and we appreciate you being here. If you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. I'm ObjectivelyDan. Signing off.
I'm Sofia Spina. Bye. you're. Is that too silly?
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Friday at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.